Last week, I ran a live workshop for group practice owners, helping them understand the levers they can pull to add an extra 100,000, 200,000 or more per year in profit to their group practice, right? These are the only things you can really do to expand your profit margin in your group practice, and they're things that most group practice owners overlook. And today in this video, I'm going to give you the highlights of that workshop. I'm actually going to be walking you through our workbook. You can find the recording of that in the description as well if you want to check out the full workshop. This is my favorite material to teach group practice owners because it really is the secret for how do we build a better model. Okay, so with that, let's jump into this workbook. Okay, so this was called Paid Earnings Disclaimer. There is no guarantee of earnings. You watching this video doesn't mean that you'll earn anything else in your group practice. You have to actually apply it. You also need to understand a lot. Even with everything I'll show you today, there's still so much nuance to how do we actually execute this within our practice, okay? So I'm gonna just go right down to the profit levers. Here they are. Number one, we've got increasing your gross profit per session. Number two, we've got increasing total sessions, growing the group practice and seeing more people. Three, we've got cutting operating expenses. And number four, we've got retaining your therapists. I did a video on retaining your therapists. Very, very important thing that a lot of group practice owners don't think about until they lose people. Let's go into this first one, increasing your gross profit per session. Here is from our profit playbook, green, yellow, and red. And this is really important because I can look at this single number and know the likelihood that your practice is profitable. It's called your gross profit per session. Under 50, I put in red. 50 to 75, I put in yellow. Green is 75 plus. The clinicians who make the most in group practice usually are above that 75. The reason why is that means that a full-time therapist seeing 20 sessions a week is making something like 6,000, 7,000 a month in gross profit for the practice. Gross profit is what you use to pay off all your expenses, pay for all your marketing, and then the money left over is your profit. The tighter it is, the less that you make from each clinician. If you're trying to put money into filling up their caseloads, into admin support for them, into software to run the practice, you're not going to have a lot left over. So the bigger we can make that margin, the better. The number one secret to having a high gross profit per session is to have a high rate. And we were talking about on this workshop, that means you can renegotiate insurance panels if you're on insurance and do that every single year so that you can push the top higher. Or if you're on private pay, you want to find ways you can be above 150, 175. It really is possible in basically every single market. A lot of this is mindset if you can't do it, but I promise you, if you switch that by $5, $10, $15, you're gonna all of a sudden feel like you have so much more oxygen, so much more room to breathe, especially if you have a couple clinicians that are full. So that's lever one, increasing your gross profit per session. For you watching, do you know what that number is, right? You're like, it's 40%. 40% of what average, right? Between whether it's a sliding scale or it's low panels and high panels, what's the average number? What are you actually getting on average? And what do we get if we subtract out payroll costs and insurance and some of the other fees necessary to have employees or contractors in our practice? That's lever one. We broke that down in detail. Lever two, and this is the one most people think about. If you have the right financial model, which is your gross profit per session, if your gross profit is right, it really just goes to how many sessions can we do without making really high costs. If you saw twice as many sessions next month as this month, you'd probably make more profit, right? Assuming you get a split of the revenue that's coming in. On the other hand, if in order to do that, we get a brand new space and we double our expenses, we may or may not make any more profit, okay? So it's about efficiency with the expense structure that we have, getting more sessions. There's two ways to do this. A lot of people think about the marketing and sales and not getting enough clients, and I'm gonna talk about that. Really, really important that you do that. But the other one is retention and clinical work. And especially if you're going beyond $1 million per year, this is incredibly important. With one of the practices that we own, we implemented really strict policies around cancellation, reschedules, and got our cancel rate from 13, 14% to 10%. That created a lift of revenue of like $10,000 a month and a lot of profit, okay? These things are difficult because we're managing people, but they're easy if we look at the numbers, can make a huge difference to the number of total sessions, right? Just having better rules around it. The second piece of this that we always think about is marketing and sales. What I do with my clients is I run a local maximizer strategy where essentially we're getting number one on Google Maps, we're running ads, we're getting everywhere where people are searching for a therapist so that they find you. If you want to learn more about that, there's a link in the description. But you need something that can be scalable to continue to get new sessions. It's not a negotiable to get new clients every single month, every single week, especially if we're trying to get profitable. And so having an engine that grows your practice is essential. Sometimes this alone is the number one thing that can lift your profit, but I don't like to focus on it too much if we can't fix the finances first, okay? If your finances are good, if you have the right clinicians that can retain their people, you have good quality clinical work, then it really is marketing we can just crank up. Let's move on to number 3. The number 3 lever is to cut operating expenses. And if you've heard of private equity coming into businesses, a lot of times they just slash the expenses, they increase profit, right? This is something you can do. I don't like to focus on this because most of the time clinicians aren't spending like crazy. Although sometimes you can make an extra $1,000 a month, a couple grand a month by being really thoughtful on your expenses and cutting unnecessary expenses that aren't driving revenue. So the simple trick to managing your finances is to learn how to categorize. I break this down for group practice owners all the time, how to look at a P&L and how to use a P&L that's actually going to help you. I have another video on this channel that walks through that. We want to look at revenue, cost of goods sold, and that's going to get our gross profit. Gross profit is the total amount of money we get to play with each month to pay all our expenses and hopefully have a little bit left over. We've got operating expenses, marketing costs. When I teach group practice owners how to run their profit and loss statement, I want to teach them how to get percentages of everything. You can see here in the workshop, I said, cost of goods sold should be maybe 60%, 70% if we want a healthy business. If you're paying your clinicians, in addition to taxes and stuff like that, 80% of the business, we've only got 20% of the total revenue to pay for all of our operating expenses, all of our marketing costs, and maybe have money left over. So you can think about, even if you're making $100,000 a month, if we're taking 80,000 out of it, we've only got 20 grand a month. And if in order to do 100,000 a month in revenue, we need 8-10 office spaces, we could see that thing costing 8,000, 12,000 a month, depending on your market. If we're spending money on marketing, if we're on simple practice, right? All of these expenses are going to come out and eat out of that 20 really, really quick. So the simplest thing we can look at is, can we get cost of goods down? That's basically the cost of your therapist. And again, we can do that by increasing our top line dollar per session that we get or adjusting our pay rates. But otherwise, if we have a couple grand a month that we can cut, learn to look at your expenses and cut things that you're not using. If you signed up for a software 2 years ago, cut it. Okay. That's lever 3. Adds a ton to your practice. Lever 4 is retaining your therapist. I went deep in this workshop on the strategies to do so, especially if you're above 8-10 therapists in your practice right now. This is a really important thing to get right. And it's important because once you get to a level of profitability in your group practice, the model's right, the marketing's right, maybe you've got some other help on the clinical side, some clinical supervisors or directors that are helping you. The number one thing you got to look out for is clinicians leaving and taking a bunch of revenue with them, and you're blindsided. And this means having proactive conversations with people to keep them, right? Especially your high performers, and helping them to continue to develop and grow, and having relationships with people so that they continue to stay. How do we do that? Pay our clinicians well, create the top tier supervision and development programs, foster community and culture, all the things that make the organization great for the individual clinician. Do those things. It will add a ton of profit to your practice. Okay. These are the 4 levers. For your practice specifically, you can run the numbers and say, if I did 1,000 sessions per month and I added $5 per session in gross profit, that's my money I can play with to do operating expenses and then have some money left over, then you would add $5,000 a month in gross profit to your business. If expenses didn't have to increase to do that, it would be $5,000 to the bottom line, 60 grand a year. If we cut expenses, 2 grand a month in expenses that we cut because we really look at our entire transaction sheet, that's 24 grand a year. All of these, if you come back to them, if you look at them now, you can find hidden profit within your business. You can grow the profit through increasing marketing, increasing retention. These are the things we want to be focused on as a business owner. And as a wider point, You might have 100 things that are on your plate. But if you're not making enough money, the business is not going to be sustainable. And so the ways that we can increase that profitability are here, right? Are in these 4 levers. Okay, so with that, take this, use it. If you want to work with me to actually go through all this stuff with you, you can join our mastermind. I work with you one-to-one to look through your P&L, teach you all these skills so that you can learn how to add more profitability. I also run the marketing for you so that you have new clients coming in the door. If you're still checking this all out, I have a full 7-figure plan for all the different categories of your business that you want to master. This is just finance. It's one piece of the business. You can check that out in the description as well.